In the last section, we added some styling to our input component, but when we rendered it inside the simulator, I wasn't able to click in here. I apologize, I made a little bit of a mistake. When we added on the style of input style, I completely forgot that we had already added on the style of a height and a width on here. So whenever we add two props with the same name, the earlier prop is overwritten by the later one. So I'm just going to remove the style that's hard-coded with a height of 20 and width 100. Save it, and now I should be able to refresh the simulator and actually tap in here and start typing some text. Okay, so back to where we need to be. One thing I want to point out here is the flex values really quick. So remember, because we gave the input a flex of 2 and a label style of 1, the input is occupying 2/3 of the available space, whereas the label is only applying, or I should say occupying, 1/3 of the space. So just a little bit more challenge inside here, a little bit more housekeeping to do on this input before we can move on to the password one. First, I want you to notice one really annoying thing here. If I put in something like, maybe I enter an email and I've got a email of like bottle@gmail.com. That's a bad example. Let's see if I can, no. Okay, well, if I just do, there we go, good enough, right there, you get the idea. If I type in a word that is not valid, iOS is going to try to autocorrect my value here. And I really very likely never want to show my user some autocorrect information around their email address. Like, it's incredibly common for people to have an email like, I don't know, Super Princess 32 or something like that. And I don't want to start to show a user some validation around their email address because it could be completely valid, as long as it has the fully qualified domain at the end here. So it'd be really nice to not have any default autocorrect on here. To handle that, we can just pass a prop to the text input here to disable that default autocorrect functionality. So I'm going to pass in an additional prop to the text input of autocorrect false. So this says, hey, don't try to autocorrect anything here. People are going to have crazy emails. Don't worry about it. So now if I start to do like, test one or whatever, okay, I made a mistake. Maybe capital C, let's give that a shot. Test one, okay. My apology, my mistake there. Autocorrect should have a capital C, not a lowercase c, and we just have to pass it the value of false, and then we won't get any validation here or any messages that the user's passing in something funky. Now the other requirement here for our email tag, we had said that we wanted to show a placeholder to the user, something to prompt them at, hey, you're supposed to put your email address in here, something beyond just the text or the label that says email. So to add a placeholder to a text input, also very easy to add, just like the autocorrect. We just need to add an additional prop to the text input. So I'll add an additional prop of placeholder, and we need to make sure that we specify this placeholder on the fly or make it available for configuration from the parent component, because I don't want to make sure this thing, I don't want a hard code email in here. If I hard code email in here, all of a sudden my input component is no longer reusable. So instead, we will receive a placeholder prop from our parent component. So I'm going to add on to our props list right here a placeholder, like so. And then we're going to flip back over to our login form and make sure that we actually add that placeholder in. So here's my input. I will add in a placeholder. And you might think, well, let's put in a placeholder of like email or something like that. I love the pattern of placing in some realistic input for the user or some realistic prompt. So instead, I'll give them a kind of more realistic prompt of maybe your email looks like user@gmail.com. Just something to guide the user into thinking, oh, that's what the form of this input should be. It should be something that looks like an email address. So now if we refresh the simulator, we see, yep, we got a very nice looking placeholder in there right now. And it's very easy for the user to understand, okay, I should probably click in there and start entering something in. All right, so this has been a great little advance here. I think there's just one last little piece of housekeeping I want to take care of. Back inside of our login form, we are currently stashing the value of the email input on a piece of state called text. Now that's completely fine, nothing bad about that. Remember, the names of all these state properties are completely arbitrary. We can make them anything we want. But very soon we're going to want to add in another text input to handle our email field as well. And at that point in time, it's not really going to make sense to have like a text piece of state and like password text or something like that. So I'm going to choose to just rename the prop here the name of the state property from text to email. So it's very clear to anyone who looks at this in the future that this piece of state right here contains the user's email address that they're trying to type in. So we need to also update some of our code down here as well. The input tag should now be pulling its value from this.state.email. And when we receive some amount of text from the onChangeText callback, we're no longer going to set a prop called text. We're going to set a prop called email. So take the text and set it on a prop of email. One other thing, if you want to rename this prop to email as well and then maintain the shortened syntax, that's completely, definitely a good refactor as well. Let's go ahead and do that just for the sake of completion. So we're going to say that rather than calling this argument text, I want to call it email. Just a quick reminder, in JavaScript, you can name your props anything you want. You can rename them on the fly, doesn't matter, whatever you want the prop to be called, go for it. Or excuse me, argument. Did not mean to say prop. And the argument can be whatever I want to call it. Props have to be specially named. Anyways, so now I've got just the email prop. I will remove the text tag, and I'm relying on a little bit of ES6 here again of getting this expanded out to a full object of email:\email. Whew. All right, I think that's just about it for collecting emails from our user. So we're definitely in a good spot here. Let's continue in the next section and start handling a password from the user as well.